For the Players, the pop culturist PlayStation podcast is fueled by the Man Shake. I lost 30 kilos in 10 months using this meal replacement shake. If you want to support the show and max in my weight loss journey, or to even start your own, click the link in the description below. The Man Shake. Real blokes, real results.
For the Players.
I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And this is For the Players, the pop culturist PlayStation podcast. Over 40 years of playing PlayStation and 6+ years that games media could buy. I'd like to thank you for joining us in this PlayStation conversation.
This PlayStation conversation happens every Monday morning at 8 a.m. on podcast services, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and 9 a.m. on those YouTubes. If you'd like to take part in future conversations with us, come check out our socials. Facebook, Discord, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those links can be found in the description below.
If you want to join the conversation as it happens, head over to twitch.tv/thepopculturist, where you can watch us record this show live. You can you can be in the chat and you can become part of the show. If you want to support the show, you can. Tell your friends, tell your family about this PlayStation pod. If you're on podcast services, be sure to give us a 5-star rating and a written review. If you are on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, leave a comment below. I endeavor to answer every single comment. And if you want to support us financially, you can. Patreon.com/thepopculturist, as well as our merchandise store, popculturist.com/shop, where you can buy shirts and other assorted shit with our logos on it. For those watching the video version, as you'll see, Max and I are doing the digital studio again because Victoria, Australia, it's time for lockdown number 4, ladies and gentlemen. Bang, bang, bang. Get excited. How goes your lockdown, Max?
Well, as you alluded to before, I am currently supposed to be in Sydney, half cut already, but
pre-show for those of you that are watching it not live.
So I was supposed to be heading up to Sydney this weekend for a stag do, and it turns out that New South Wales were like, yeah, you can come, but you can't party. You have to go to wherever it was you were going and stay there and interact with nobody and never leave that area. I'm like, well, I just won't come then.
I was like, fine, I didn't want to go anyway.
So I then proceeded to go and cancel my flights because Jetstar's like, hey, we're going to be flexible. If you want to cancel your flights, you can, and we'll give you a travel voucher. Just head to our website. Website doesn't work. An hour and a half later on the phone, the lady on the other end's like, yep, done. 45 seconds later, had the credit vouchers ready to go. Nice. So when this is all blown over and I can find another weekend, I'm like, maybe I'll head up then. So I did the responsible thing. I called my boss. I went, hey, because of the lockdown, I can't travel anymore. I still want Monday and Friday off though. And he's like, yeah, no worries. I'm like, can you please let me know if I'm back at work on Tuesday? Because this is a 7-day lockdown as it stands now.
Yeah. But
apparently I'm essential service and I'm required back at work Tuesday morning.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I'm still an essential worker, so literally nothing is changing for me. I will be continuing as per normal over the next week, which is fine. So it's been 1 day of lockdown. Started yesterday at time of recording, so it was Friday, and I proceeded to get backroom drunk, and I regret entirely my decision. Because it was one of those ones where I was sitting here and I was originally painting a miniature for you. Mm-hmm. I'm just sipping drinks and I had my old iTunes playlist going, right? My old iTunes library. And I'm like, I'm having just like 10, 15-year-old, 15, 20-year-old jams. I'm having the best time just like painting minis. And then of course I'm just sipping drinks, and then I was like, I'll go up and I would grab another two. Because I would rotate two out of the fridge, and I'd bring them down here, and then and then whatever, and then because it took a while to sort of kick in, so it's like yep, cool. Went up, swap over, come back, and was like, and then like, yeah, I'm feeling a little bit buzzed. I probably should stop painting minis. So instead, I'm just jamming the tunes. I was chatting to people on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and just having a good time, and it was one of those things where I was like, okay, where are we at? And then I stand up and I go, boo! Like the whole world just slows down. I'm like, I have made a horrible mistake. And that's pretty much what I came down to. I was like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake. Because I'm like, I can feel it, and it's gonna suck. And it did proceed to suck for a little while. Because the second was one of those like seconds you lie down, everything's like, like, oh,
Yeah.
crap. Feel
Unlucky.
great. But the joys of drinking whiskey with no sugar cola is that I feel fantastic today. No hangover, nothing. Every time I've drank with the whiskey with the no sugar, I'm still yet to have a hangover.
That's good.
That's a good win. But yeah, no, I just sit here, painted minis, and had a good time. It was great. So if anyone else that is watching from Victoria, I hope you're having a good time in your lockdown. Lockdowns fucking suck, and it is a mental drain. So of course, if you do need, you can reach out to us and have a chat. We understand. We feel your pain. It's a fucking shitty time. And so hopefully, on the Monday when you're listening to this, it takes your mind off being stuck in your fucking house for 7 days minimum. In between like playing games, of course. What have you played?
So, as we alluded to last week, I've spent a fair bit of time with Biomutant. So, thank you to the... Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought you were going to add something.
No, I was like, yeah. So, I will now. So, big thank you to the team over at Coke Media here in Australia. They did provide us the review code for Biomutant on the PS4. We did have it for just under a week prior to launch. However, because I lost my voice, we couldn't really tackle the show. We couldn't sort of review a little cutout like we have been, which was with the original plan was to have a cutout by embargo. But my voice was gone, and it was entirely possible. And mostly because of bad news.
So I've been playing this. I've put about 10 hours in now.
Yeah.
And we've had this game for about 2 weeks now. So yeah, it's so this is the new open world RPG game from what's the studio called? I had it written down and I've lost it now.
It's like a really tiny team. I'm gonna say like 101 or something, but
yeah, I think it is. Yeah, so they're from Experiment 101. You're spot on. Well done. And so you play as these anthropomorphized
cat
animals or creatures. Yeah. So at the start, it's much like any other RPG. You pick your race, and it's literally a race of animals this time, which is pretty cool. You pick your general class, which kind of sets your base stats, and you can play with them a little bit. And then each class has its own innate perk. One of them's like you get an instant reload for your range weapons. One's you get psychic abilities, and you can shoot lightning balls and stuff. There's a few others. I think there was about 6 to choose from. So there was a wide variety. And then comes up with the clause of, hey, it doesn't really matter too much what you pick at the start, because you can place your stats in any way you see fit once you start leveling up. So you do have that freedom to change if you want to. So it kind of throws you straight into like a tutorial-esque area where it teaches you how to use your attacks and your ranged attacks, your melee attacks. You do all this is how you jump, and this is how you move the camera and all that stuff. Yeah. And there's this narrator basically narrating what you're doing the whole time. Now, I found the narrator to be quite annoying at times.
Yeah.
And he kind of droned on, very unenthusiastic voice. It was kind of just like this monotonous voice over. And once you do that, it kind of throws you in, and it basically sets up the idea that the world is diseased. There's this world tree, and each of its 4 roots have kind of been contaminated, and you're tasked with going and cleansing the roots to fix the tree. So I've gotten close to the first root. So I've done some of the... there's factions in the world. And as you progress through the factions, you can unlock faction weapons, which are like strong weapons. And then if you choose one faction to the other, you kind of go to war with them, and it blocks out entire gameplay. Things that you can pick from. The weapons are kind of cool. They're kind of like these mishmash of whatever you can find in the world kind of put together. So at the moment I'm using this. It's this gigantic rocket glove. So it's just this big gauntlet with a rocket on the back of it that I can use to like break down walls and bash people's faces in. The combat is kind of it's a very simple, like square is melee attack, R2 to shoot. Very simple. There are I can't think of the exact name for it, but they're basically like kung fu special moves. So you input certain button prompts.
Still combos,
and you'll do like a specific attack. Some of those are cool. They're all unlocked by getting ability points, which you gain by leveling up, and by killing certain enemies you can get psi points, which are used to unlock the psychic abilities. And then you've got the abilities are also locked behind a light and dark system. So you have kind of like Mass Effect's Renegade and whatever the hell the other one is, or
So
Infamous.
They've all got
that good and bad, black and white kind of polar choices. Generally speaking, anything on the left-hand side of the dialogue tree was dark. Anything on the right-hand side of the dialogue tree was light. And as you put points into those by selecting certain dialogue options, you could unlock certain abilities. You could level them up both equally. Like, it wasn't like if you started down the dark side, you could never redeem yourself. Those points aren't lost when you do choose a light side option, which is nice. And then it introduces like crafting. You can craft weapons. Those weapons that you get at the start of the game can go through till the end of the game with you, because you can keep upgrading them and enhancing them, and they kind of level up with you, which is nice. So if you find a weapon that you kind of want to stick to, you do have that opportunity to stick with it. I just found that there were so many systems in this game, be it like the crafting, the 3 different types of ability points that you get, and plus all the attribute points, the skill trees. There were so many different things in it, but the game world itself just seemed so empty. And it seemed like overly mechanically heavy, but gameplay wise, the world itself felt so vast and empty. There was nothing to do between those points of go here for this quest to do this thing, go there to do this thing. Now, granted, I have only played 10 hours. I don't know if it's going to open up heaps more once I get that first route system done. So, take all of this with a grain of salt. But for me, it has been a very slow start in a fairly empty world.
Yeah. So, look, a lot of my sentiments do certainly mirror yours. Coming into this, this was not on my list of any game that I was going to particularly care about. So, I know you were quite excited about what
I watched some gameplay footage and stuff, and I actually said to you, I'm like, hey, can we reach out and see if we can get a copy? I'd love to check this out. And it does have the I know there was a patch coming out soon, or I'm not sure if it has been patched yet, but I know it's only running at 1080p at the moment because the 4K kind of broke it a little bit. Yeah. So, it's been having technical issues as well, which is a real shame.
Yeah, pretty much. So for me, I had very minimal to no major emotion going into this game. Mm-hmm. I was like, all right, cool, I'll check it out because Max is playing it. Like, we got the review code, so Max is the one that's keen. I'll jump in so we can chat. And like the first thing off the ground, I'm like, ooh. I remember the footage that I did see certainly looked prettier than this. Don't get me wrong, I can't make a game for shit, so I can sit here and like shit on a game's visual aesthetics, knowing that I can't make one. But it is, it was kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit, especially in the character model, because like it's when you go with the pre-built character models, it looks fantastic. The second you start flexing it and moving it and adding your little tweak to it is when it starts being a bit uncomfortable looking. So when you do alter your attributes, the body of the character fluxes accordingly, in the same way that like if you make your character stronger, they suddenly start getting more jacked, or if they get a bit leaner or whatever, right? So there's a visual representation of their skill point, of their skill focus, I should say. Mm-hmm. That's idea is very cool. but it just kind of made the character models look weird. Like when you add that super level of flexibility, it gave me that weird sort of like Gary's Mod-esque feel. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just like someone's clearly pushing the boundaries of what the original model was supposed to do, and has that weird kind of stretched feature look. Saying that though, there was an update afterwards, and it looked better overall, which was really weird. Which may have been the downgrade to the 1080. Is once again playing it pre-release. But yeah, so in terms of the narrate, which is one of the points that you mentioned, I don't feel it, especially coming off the back of like Immortals Phoenix Rising, which has had incredible dual narrators, which with Zeus and Prometheus. No, Prometheus. Yeah, that was fantastic. Like because it was actually a part of the story, and two, it gave off a good energy. It gave off this good feeling of this communication banter between these two characters. Where here the narrator is, vocalizing what you are doing, but excuse me, but they also provide all the communication because none of the other creatures talk. They make weird vocalizations, but they don't talk in English or talk in any language really. So they're deciphering what the random noises are. And yeah, for me, it just didn't interest me. Like it was, like you said, it's quite bland, but even everyone gave Destiny 1 shit for Peter Dinklage. I had no issue. I think Peter Dinklage at least had some sort of narrative oomph in his voice in Destiny, where here I'm just like, okay. Playing the game though, look, straight off the bat, this is not a game for me. Like it's not much about it is certainly appealing to me. As you said, the game world seems incredibly open, but empty. It's real bizarre because like one of the things they talked about was like the comparisons they used. They were like, "Oh, it's like Breath of the Wild." I'm like, "Dude, a giant world that's fucking half empty." I didn't even like Breath of the Wild that much, but that's not one of the selling points. You know what I mean? Like an open world that's empty that you have to traverse to get to places. Like that sense of exploration, I'm not getting it here. Like there are some cool environmental storytelling because it is very clear that this is post-apocalyptic and the idea that this was a human civilization, and whether it be the poisoning of this great tree, essentially like pollution, and the people that were there before, which in this case was humans, broke the world. They
reference like the world eaters.
World eaters, yeah. So post all that of humans being trash is what has caused these mutations, these biomutations. Biomutant. Bing. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, the story is at least interesting in that sense. But, like you're going off and you're meeting with heads of other fucking cat tribes, and, they're very black and white in their morality. One's clearly the good path, one's clearly the bad path. But your morality as a character is flexible. And so the reference that I heard was, as you said, Mass Effect, right? Where the idea, unlike Infamous, where you're either good or you're bad, and all you're doing is shifting that lever in different intensities on either side, so that you can never really be just neutral. Where here, like there is the black and the white, but there's also a lot of grey, so you can still make those moral decisions that don't overly affect the plan that you are going. Like you're not suddenly less dark by making one light choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, correct.
So if you want to play like an arsehole character, but the decision in that moment puts you on the light side, you're not disrupting your entire game plan, which I really appreciate. From a mechanic perspective, I really like that. Morality level specifically is such a difficult thing to bring into games because that level of consequence of action, whether something you decide now will affect you later on. So either the results are so predetermined that no matter what you do, this morality shit means nothing, or it's so ambiguous it could mean anything anyway, therefore meaning nothing. So it's so ambiguous or so specific it doesn't matter what your choices are. Now, as neither you nor I have seen the end of this game yet, so we would be unsure on what those like overarching long-term things would be. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool. But yeah, the combat, it seems flashy, but there's no substance to it. It's just lacking any kind of engagement. It's just like it just feels like you're flailing at an enemy. It's like cartoonish, and like when a bunch of words pop up like cartoonish balloon words, that to me seems
it's got like
tonally different.
It's got like comic book kapows happening in there.
And it's like, fucking drunken hit or whatever the special move is. And I'm like, that seems very tonally different. But in short, like as you said, you're looking at those menus, you're looking at all these different built-in systems. It feels like it is reaching in so many different locations, trying to grab a bunch of cool ideas, but executing none of them well. Like they're all fine, but they're like it's a jack of all trades, literally master of none. Like that expression completely encapsulates what Biomutant is delivering, and that's how I feel. Now, granted, it is a very small team. It is this is like one of the first big things that they've done. There's not a lot of what's I'm looking for, like a pedigree in the studio in terms of like if we were to look at say Fallout or something, right? I'm thinking of another RPG where with like morality system, you're like, wow, there's so many things going on here, and it feels like it's all involved in this bigger picture. Where here it feels like a bunch of different creators had a bunch of different ideas and they found a way to push it all together. The only thing that's confusing me here is how did the hype for this game get so high?
Because it was first shown off in like 2017, I want to say, 2018.
Because like as far as I know, everyone is like was at least rock hard going into this game, and the appeal for me was never there. At no point have I ever been like, oh man, Biomutant's gonna be something. Like, so look, I'm sure I'm coming in with like a unintentional towards it because I didn't care anyway, but it's doing nothing to win me over. It's doing nothing to make me want to progress forward. Like, even though I'm now, I'm clearing out these little areas, I'm just like, okay. Like, it doesn't have that sense. And, like, I think, one of the biggest problems that this studio is going to have is that when the game director had that interview and he talked about how this game is like a Breath of the Wild, it's like Arkham, it's like this, it's like that, it's like that. I'm like, what is it? I think that's actually it's a bad example because people are thinking they're going to pull the best parts of those games out and put it into one awesome game. However, they've pulled those base mechanics, but have executed none of them well, as far as I can see it. As far as for me, right? So it's it's just it's that idea of like, yeah, I understand you have all these influences. We as individuals, we as content creators, we as whoever, right? I've said it before, we are the sum of our influences. There is nothing wrong with having it very clear, open and honest. These were the things that influenced you to do X, right? Same as this show. This show was influenced from many PlayStation podcasts that came before it. We have no shame in saying that. However, at some point, we have shifted it into what we are. And here, like, it feels like they've taken that inspiration and then they've gone, we like this game, we like that, we like that. Do they all really work together? Like, no, but I like them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's because they were given that full because they're a small team, they're given that full creative scope to grab at anything they really wanted. It kind of created this muddled sort of brown mixture of paint. Rather than a nice painting, it's this weird brown muddle. Like you can see, you still very clearly defined things within that brown. It's a lot of brown, a lot of mud.
Yeah.
Does anything of what I've just said make sense?
To me, yes. Having played it, yes. Like I said, I think I had very similar thoughts, and it was a real shame because I think one of the first thing I said to you, I'm like, it's so different to what they showcased in gameplay footage to what we actually saw in the final product.
Yeah. Well, because what was the first thing you said to me? You're like, I've been.
I feel like I've been catfished.
Yeah, because you were brought in thinking it was going to be this one thing, and see, this is the interesting thing. Like, I think, I do think it's an expectation thing as well.
Oh yeah, no, I'm
not just you, but I mean in general.
That's on me. Yeah.
We as the gaming community have a history of hyping up independent games to be the next big thing, which certainly can happen, but then people forget that they are independent studios, that they may not have all the skills, all the abilities that the other guys have, right?
Yeah.
Pardon me. So we're like, oh, this game's going to be so amazing. And then like, oh, the game's fine. I'm like, well, yeah, it's an independent studio. What do you expect? Like, you need to keep those expectations in check.
Oh yeah,
like, no, in the same way as like,
I'm certainly not blaming them for the way I feel.
Oh, I'm sure they may have marketed a certain way, but I mean, like, Same as like No Man's Sky, right? The marketing on that game made it look to be so amazing and immaculate. Not the case. Like, I'm sure I can pull other recent examples.
I was gonna say that might be a bad example purely because Sony themselves were pushing that so hard because it was a...
Look, very true, but it's that same idea. If you go into the game and same as Biomutant, you go, this game is fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, I don't understand the hype. I don't understand the excitement, but it is fine. And that's pretty much where it's at. So look, once again, shout out to Coke Media. I will attempt to play some more out of it. I will try push my way through it. I don't see myself rolling credits on it because from all accounts it's just the same stuff over and over again. And we here on the content with the channel and the content that we make, we do our very best to do only things that we enjoy. Because we don't like to sit here and shit on things. We don't like to be like, oh, this game fucking blows. Yeah, that's not us. So we are very lucky that we're in a position that we normally can pick games that we know we're going to like, games that we're interested in. And I think that's why Biomutant is an interesting example, because it was a game that you were interested in, but we can sit here and discuss why we were interested in it, and what it could lead to. So it's disappointing. It's still not the shittest game I've ever played, by any stretch.
No.
But it is a bit of a bummer, and I feel for those like yourself, Max, that may have been excited.
That's all right.
But one thing that I've been playing this week, I've been playing today actually. So I've been playing it today. I think first time to sit down with this today. So there's a website that you can use as a content creator. It's a website called Keymailer, right? So it's literally a platform that if you are a content creator and you submit a request for an application, if you get accepted, they go, cool, and you have the ability to request codes for games from independent teams, right? And I was scrolling through there the other day, and we've never been I think I've asked for a handful of things, and no one's either gets back to us or straight denied, right? And so I was like, holy shit, Leisure Suit Larry, Wet Dreams Don't Dry. I'm like, I've never played a Leisure Suit Larry game ever. Fuck it, why not? Boop. So I pressed the button. Because even my dad, who is not a gamer, he knows Leisure Suit Larry games. For some reason, he remembers them. And I was like, look, I've never played one. I'm not really a point and click guy, but I want to see how a point and click is delivered on a console. So big thank you to the development team, to the independent team, for providing us the review code for Leisure Suit Larry, Wet Dreams Don't Dry. So the game itself, it is set in a now era. So Leisure Suit Larry hasn't really been a thing since or at least some sort of thing since the 80s, right? So the story reflects that. Larry, they kind of just blow it away. They're like, something happened and you were in the 80s and then you were frozen and now you're here. You're now here in, you're not in Cancun, you're in Cancun, right? Like, because everything's dicks, and I'm a child, so that's funny. So you're in this location that they essentially just unload you with exposition of how you got here, which is really great. It's also a lot of information to the beginning because none of it seems to make sense because they're very clearly referencing previous games. So like myself, who has never played them, I'm like, I don't know who that is. Why is that character called BJ? Seems appropriate for the game, but I still don't get it. And the story about this woman that Larry was connected to. Her name was Faith, and there's all this big thing, right? And so you're on this little island. So you're essentially about to get married off to one of the only other women on the island because they're essentially implying U.S. citizenship is the thing. So they're trying to get that, and then the first thing you do is to try to get off the island. So you are scoping around this small location, like a point-and-click adventure you do, finding all these things, weirdly combining them, just solving shit to get off this island. As you come to see that them, Faith, who you thought was dead, may not be dead, and you need to go on and explore. So right off the bat, the game does have what I would consider the infamous Leisure Suit Larry sense of humor. It is very lowbrow. Like, the enemy base is literally just a giant building, looks like a dick. There is dicks everywhere. Because Larry is now in our times, he's given a mobile phone, and he gets advised by the the operating system. So you know that there's a camera on it. So the operating system is like a Cortana, but it's called Pi, like Pi. And then you have the Pi phone, which is the brand of the phone. And she's like, hey, you know, there's a camera on the back of the phone, so if there's an item that you find that you can't pick up or put into your pockets, you can take a photo of it. So when you go and combine it later, you will still have it. He goes, there's a camera on this thing, and then he proceeds to go off camera and take a photo of his junk. So, and like with that comes the idea of like, look, where we're at now, some of the shit that you would do in the past ain't gonna fly. So the game literally starts off with sensitivity training. So like, okay, look, we want to do your daily sensitivity training, Larry. And they ask a question. It's like, you know, if your it was actually interesting. It was like, if your friend has depression, and what would you do? What would you say to them? And all the three answers are fucking horrible. So you just pick an answer, and then it goes, that's not right. You would do this. Would you do that? You know. And then the other one was like, if your co-worker at a job was to make a sexist joke, what would you do? All three answers are like, what was the joke? Is it funny? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're approaching it wrong. So they're very aware of the history of Leisure Suit Larry and how it isn't going to really reflect now. So it hasn't been like unnecessarily crude or sexist yet, which is what I imagine the other previous ones do, because the character himself, it goes, I feel, you know, like they use all those beats. He's like, if it's a different, like, it feels like such a different time now. I feel like I can't say what I'm thinking. And they're like, well, are you aware that what you're thinking may have been inappropriate? And it's just like, well, you know, you were more not, like, and because one of the questions was, you know, like, how many genders are there? And the answer is no. The answer is diverse. You know, there are multiple genders. And it's just, the idea is like, it was just simpler back then. It's like, no, you were just naive to how the world worked. Like, these things were always there. You just didn't see them that way. So I do quite like that idea in terms of approach of being like, look, we know that we have been a pretty garbage franchise in the past, especially around like these particular things. Yes, that was by design, but they were the part of the times. So I'm very curious to see, as I progress through the game further, what beats they're going to hit around that world, right? And how they deliver. What are you chuckling about?
Sorry, my kid's at the door, like, kicking it.
Yeah, so now that she can walk around and stuff, she's like, let me in. Yeah, in terms of the point and clicky stuff, I really appreciate they have adapted to consoles really, really well. In the way that, you know, you can freely walk with the left stick, and then the right stick allows you to have a cursor that goes around the world. So if you were so inclined, you could literally scout the entire map like you would on a computer, or you can press R2, which will just scan anything that's in the room that's pick upable. Or if you press both sticks in, it will mark everything that is obtainable in the level. So it is a little bit of an easy mode, I guess, but the game doesn't hold your hands in terms of what you... So, cool, you've picked up all these things, now what? Like, because you and I were chatting today, we were voice chatting on the PS5, and I think the exact words, what the fuck am I going to do now? Because, like, I had, like, a volleyball and weeds, like seaweed, I had a fucking stick and some lube, and like a lipstick. I just had this bunch of random items. Here I am trying to like mash these all together to work out what this was. Eventually I got there and I was able to get out of the first area. But like, in terms of I think by design, the point and click adventure, like, I did got a sweet sense of achievement out of it once I kind of put two and two together and went, oh, cool, this and that. It was a lot of trial and error, but I did get a good like sense of accomplishment out of it. And once again, we'll see how the game progresses, because I imagine, especially in this early days, you know, there's probably a little bit simpler point and clickiness, because to get you in that feedback loop of being like, well, this is how you do it, this is what you do, and then you keep moving forward. But I said, it's still early days. I got a little bit more time with it. I do think I will spend some more time with it over the week. My original plan was to stream it, but yeah, once again, my voice canned out, and it's even doing it right now. So I might not be able to do that. But yeah, like, it's an interesting game to be playing, and I kind of like it. Yeah, for all its silliness, I kind of like it. But we'll wait and see on that one. Because it is available. Are you gonna check it out? Or you do, like,
I'll probably check it.
So it's a hard no
probably
from Max.
It out.
No, it's a curious from Max.
I'll check it out.
Bit Larry curious. We've all been there.
Bit Larry curious. So another thing that I've been playing is last night I downloaded the Super Bomberman Type R online demo. So this is either you can purchase it or it's a free-to-play online Super Bomberman Battle Royale. Mm-hmm. So much akin to that of like Mario 99, Tetris 99, all those stuff. You have your Bomberman fields on the outside. So there's 16 Bomberman fields in total. You all start off with four on each map. So there's 64 players in total. And then as the time progresses, after about 2 minutes, the levels all open up, and you can just walk out the side of your level and jump into someone else's. But there's a 10-second, they refer to it as like the movement time. So for 10 seconds, you get to jump out of the arenas because some arenas completely blow up and they don't exist anymore. And you find a new arena, and then it shows where the blocks are going to fall. It basically resets the map, and you start again, and you keep going until there's only one person left. Unfortunately, this game is super pay to win.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so if you have the free version, you get the basic Bomberman characters like the white guy, the blue guy, the brown, the white, the black, the blue, the red, the yellow. Standard guys, no special abilities, no nothing. They've all got different stats, but they're just normal plain guys. Or you can buy the game for $15 and you get a bunch of special characters. You get like Pyramid Head from Silent Hill.
Yeah.
But Pyramid Head, for example, can place bombs like everyone else. But he also has a sword, and if he hits you with your sword, you instantly die.
Oh.
He doesn't have to wait for a bomb to blow you up. He just walk up to you and smack you in the face, and you're out. So you do get 2 lives. You get 1 respawn. But it plays essentially like every other Bomberman. Like you pick up the roller skates and you can move faster. You pick up the fire and your bombs shoot. The explosives are bigger. You can pick up the glove and you can throw your bombs. You get the soccer boot and you can kick it. It's literally Bomberman, but just with 64 people and 16 maps. They're all the same map. There's no special. There's no specialty gimmicks on any of the maps. They're just plain maps. But yeah, it was kind of fun. Brought back that Bomberman nostalgia. You can play private matches only if you've got the paid version. So I think it's like $14.95 on the Aussie store. So it's not expensive, but it's definitely pay to win.
Nice.
Which is a shame. And the other thing I've been playing this week is a whole crapload of Destiny 2. I am now at 1307 light. The hard cap's at 1320. Getting super close. It's been really good to have someone to grind with again. It's hot. Been getting me.
Oh, and I should also mention, out of nowhere, I randomly picked up the Tools Up DLC. So Tools Up is a game that I played like back in 2019, I think. It was a while ago. It was, I think it was like when Audica came out, so 2019.
Yeah.
And like it's essentially like moving out, like Overcooked, but it's all about renovation. So you would go into a house and you rip out the carpet and you paint the walls and you lay tiles or you move furniture. It's awesome. So this expansion is like a garden expansion. So you take it out of the house and you do stuff in the garden. So it was about 15 levels, and I bought the season pass. It was like $22 or something. Apparently there's 2 more DLCs planned. I did the whole thing solo, and I got all of 3. I got 3 essentially, because they're not stars, but they're 3 leaves. I got 3 leaves on every level by myself without any difficulty. I did it in like an afternoon. It wasn't even that hard, but it was fun. I fucking love Tools Up, man. It is a very good game. Like it is that Zen sort of like task. You go in, then you're like, cool, I know what I want to do. I go bing, 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 bing. And when you're by yourself, you have to plan it a little bit differently. And I had an absolute fucking ripper time doing it. I'm very, very curious to see what the other 2 DLCs are. Because I like whenever they drop, I'm keen to see them. But yeah, this was cool. Like it's a relatively easy, pardon me, string of trophies as well. I'm only missing 2 or 3. One of them is like pat the dog, which I just got to go to the dog level. I can't remember which one it was. Carry 4 bits of furniture at once, which I think means I need to have 4 players, which is going to be tough. As long as if I can plug PS4 controllers into the PS5, then I should be okay. Then the other was put a bunch of furniture in the wrong spots, which just takes time to go in there and do it. But yeah, no, like that's a pretty dope game. It's been good. Oh yeah, and I'll be playing some Outriders as well. Just try to get through that one when I can. All right, before we jump into the news, because we've got a lot of news to talk about. We've already been going for like 45 minutes, but we still have a bit to go. It is time for our Get Less Fat update. For those of you that I presume you may know, or maybe you don't know, in 2020, I lost over 30 kilos using a product called the Man Shake. It is a meal replacement shake that I am an ambassador for. So in that, and the Man Shake have come on board, and they are helping power for the players. And we, both Max and I, are continuing on our weight loss journeys. Max, he kicked things off in January. And where are you at today?
So since January, I'm at 11 kilos lost total.
11 kilos. How's your week been, though?
Well, as someone in the chat earlier alluded to, I'm supposed to be in Sydney this week. So I knew I was going to have like a pretty big blowout this weekend. So I've been pretty lax with myself this week, knowing that was going to happen. So I'm like, oh, I'm not going to stress about it too much, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm in lockdown. So now I'm like, So this week's been pretty bad. I expect my numbers to up a little bit next week, which is a shame. But I knew it was coming. I planned for it, so I'll be right. Nice. So this week I'm just like, whatever. Fucking lockdown.
So for me, it must be lockdowns must be the key that gets me going. Because, so I talked about, I think it was previously a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned how I've been wanting to reduce my calorie intake, right? I want to see whether I can get any more weight loss going. And I did. I didn't see a whole lot of change, but I was also going to the gym a lot at that time as well. So over the last 2 weeks, I have made the conscious decision to alter my meal plan. So for dinner, rather than having homemade dinners that I've been getting those portion controlled U-Foods and or My Muscle Chef meals. So I've been having them with the reduced calorie intake from the change of my snacks. And even when I did go to the gym last week, because I did get a little bit sick, so I didn't go all week, I focused solely on cardio. I was like, no weights, let's just go cardio, and let's see if I can push that line. When I started this, I was at 111 kilos on Tuesday. Just went the one before. So I think it was like Tuesday where are we? 18th? Yeah, 18th. So Tuesday the 18th, I weighed in at 111. So I did go back up a little bit from 110, which I lost my 30 kilos. I am now, as of this morning, 107.2.
Oh, nice.
So I've lost just under 3 kilos in 2 weeks. And that's just simply by changing my dinners and just reducing my overall calorie intake for the day. Because when you make your own dinner, it's really tough to correctly portion out that shit. So yes, I'm essentially sitting at like 33 and a bit kilos gone now, which is great. Because I haven't been under 110 kilos in probably since I was in high school. Easily since I was in high school. So that's awesome. The only downside that I'm having though is that, because now that I think I've talked about this before, like now that my stomach is less, I look like a melted candle from like the titties down. It's a hot fucking mess. But with that, as I'm losing weight, like I'm just having this like sort of droopy stomach feel. No, buddy. Out, please. Go. I'm doing a show. I'm recording with Max, like right now. Out, Pat, please. So that's a problem, but the problem is that because as I'm losing more weight, like there's a bit more droop, and one of my biggest self-consciousness things is my stomach hanging out under my shirt. Mm-hmm. It's been that when I was big, and it's even worse now that it's all droopy. Because like whatever shirt, and a shirt that fits right across the front here, like it feels too short now because my belly is just I need to get rid of whatever this is. So in time, like if I hit my 100 kilo weight loss, but sorry, not weight loss, 100 kilo weight, so that'll be like just over 40 kilos lost completely. I may have to go down the line of like getting this shit sorted out because I'm incredibly self-conscious about it, and 2, it's going to actually make my life harder.
Yeah. So,
but we'll get there in time, and there's more time for me to get that sorted. Yeah, that's where I'm at in terms of my get weight loss. But if you want to support this show, you can, heading over the link bit.ly/FTPmanshake. You don't even have to buy anything. Just by going there and clicking the link, you are helping support the show, which is awesome. And if you do decide to go in there, maybe you can, start your own weight loss journey as well. And then you too can be self-conscious about your midsection in a different way than you were before. It's such a catch-22, Max. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's get into the section called Inform the Players. We tell you about what happened this week in PlayStation. Now, at some point in the show, we're going to cut in. I'll probably do it after this. A thing that you did with a good friend of the show, Paul Dreamsom, Player 2. But before we do that, we're going to talk about what happened this week with PlayStation. And it is a massive one. So on Friday, the 28th of May, Sony dropped a State of Play. And that State of Play was entirely around Horizon Forbidden West. So unlike previous State of Plays where it's like a showcase, a bunch of other things come in as well, this was just, 15 minutes, and 14 of those minutes was gameplay. So there wasn't any like background conversation, there wasn't like showcasing other small independent games. It was just literally, hi, here's 14 minutes of Horizon Forbidden West gameplay. First thing we'll mention, no release date. They said there's more coming, but there is no release date. So no implication that's even in 2021.
They did say that development was on track.
Yeah.
And we have heard in the past that 2021 was the year release for it. Mm-hmm. So that does give me hope that it is still coming this year. Now, that was obviously on the back end of the whatever showcase they did earlier. Was it this year or late last year, where they dated a few things and some people went, hey, you need to pull the dates off those games where they're not going to be ready. I don't believe Guerrilla came out and said, hey, you need to pull that
I don't think they were in that list. I think that list was all third parties or second parties. Because I know Kenna was in there, and I know Deathloop was in there, and
I don't recall, but yeah,
and my son left the door wide open.
There you go. So somehow the 2021 year frame did get thrown out from somewhere. So to hear that development is on track is obviously a good sign. It's probably a smart play from them to not announce a release date, because once they announce a release date, if they can't hit it, they've got to delay it, and no one likes delays, so they're playing the if it doesn't have a date, it can't be delayed.
Like, look, personally, this concerns the shit out of me because I need games for my draft list. And if they don't put it, if this doesn't come out this year, then I'm double fucked because God of War ain't coming out this year if Horizon isn't coming out this year. And I can't take another 2-game hit, Max. That would make me 4 out of 8 games not releasing this year.
Would have made you 6 if you didn't make that swap for Destruction All Stars. Yeah.
It's rough, man.
So the video itself is the single most viewed game presentation from Sony, and it hit just under 2.5 million views in its first 24 hours. So it beat out, like, I think Demon's Souls had one, Last of Us Part 2 had one. So Demon's Souls was the most recent highest at 2.2 million. Last of Us had like 1.9. Ratchet recently got its one. And yeah, Horizon's just blowing them all out of the water. And boy, oh boy, does that game look incredible.
It looks fancy. So this was captured on a PS5, and it looked tremendous. There were some things that I did notice, though, just to sort of get them out of the way. One thing I noticed, because obviously it's very clearly early footage, because same can be said for when I played Final Fantasy VII Remake. There was a bunch of these sort of issues as well, but which then corrected themselves by full release. I noticed that Aloy's hair was clipping through her bow on her back, and very clearly clipping through it. In the footage itself, there's a moment where there's a camera on her in a cutscene, and she has like... Because this is more of a jungle environment compared to what was in 1. And she's wearing a dress and stuff made out of like palm leaves and like, bark and ferns and stuff, right? So like it has this kind of fraying on the shoulder pads. In that shot, it went from a thin to like a fucking puffy full in like, as in like a pop in. There was a straight pop in of shit on her shirt. I was like, oh, that's not good. That's not good to show. I was worried that it was just me, so I remember rewinding it going, no, okay, no, that's a very clear pop in of that. Okay, all right, no worries. First, but to add to that, the game, like the density of the environment is so high, as in like because we're in an overgrown sort of fern beachside area, like there is sand, there is like fucking types of coral in the water, there is just grass everywhere. Like from a lived-in looking environment, there is shit everywhere. It's mad. Additionally, we do see some new robos as well. We saw something that looks like they did name them, but I forgot what they were. There is a Velociraptor-esque looking thing. I'm not even trying to hide the fact that motherfucker's a dinosaur now. We got a big T-Rex in the first one. They're like, no, this literally looks like a Velociraptor. But even down to like the not the Jurassic Park Velociraptor, like what they believe a real Velociraptor would look like with like the feathers and shit. That was cool. They have these great little chainsaw jaws that kind of open and pull apart. Very similar to like Predator, I guess. There's a very easy visual example. We saw elephants from Lord of the Rings. Big ass fucking mammoth bastards. They look pretty sick as well. And then there was like a giant alligator.
The giant crocodile in the water. It's terrifying as.
Yeah, the giant croc looked fucking horrifying. And a bunch of little smaller creatures as well. It's cool. I like it. Like from a visual aesthetic, I love all of it. It actually has inspired me, like, because, look, admittedly, I've admitted this on the show before, I am yet to roll credits on Horizon Zero Dawn. I've started it up, I've restarted it like 3 times now, and each time I get a little, like the first time I got the most in, I think it was like 15, 20 hours, and then each time I'll be like, oh, I've got some time between the next game, I'll play Horizon. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling inspired. I'll play Horizon again now. And then Twitter was like, hey, do you know Ratchet & Clank's coming out in 2 weeks? I'm like, fuck, well, I guess I'm not playing Horizon.
Yeah, so I have rolled credits on Horizon, but I haven't played the Frozen Wilds?
Frozen Wilds.
I haven't played that yet, so that might be my... When we get a release date, I'll jump in, smash out the Frozen Wilds before playing.
Yeah, I said I'm super keen to give it a go, and I think I will. I think I'll finally roll credits. I will at least roll credits before it releases. That was my approach with Resident Evil 7. I replayed it so I could get it ready. Yeah. Same as Ratchet. So there's a lot, but there's a lot to take in this trailer. It just looks better overall. There seems to be new gameplay mechanics and the idea of you can upgrade your spear on the fly with sort of additional little, like, essentially like locking a coffee pod into it, and then it becomes electric. There's like a little parasol you can, when you jump off something. I believe that's new. Visually, in terms of one of the biggest problems that I found in the game was its facial capture. That seems to have really improved here as well. It looks really smooth, but it still has that kind of like, it looks realistic with like a nice little cartoonish sort of flair to it. So it's not ultra realistic, say like The Last of Us is. It is still like kind of what's what I'm looking for? Sort of an artist realism, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I did make me laugh super fucking hard though is the first character you meet is this gentleman. He's clearly injured. They've just been ambushed. Aloy comes up and she's like, "Oh man, have some water." That motherfucker did not let go of that water bottle. She's like, "Cool, thanks." He's like, "Nah," and she eventually just goes, "Nah, man," and just leaves it with him. I for some reason I found that incredibly humorous. It was great.
Yeah, so apart from obviously all the new mechs that we saw, we did get to see that there were like the renegades. I can't think of what the actual term they used for the other humans, the rebels. The rebels. So it's not just the
Ravengers.
Yeah, maybe Ravagers sounds right. And they were obviously tethered to the machines, kind of like you could in Horizon 1, where you could take them over. I think it was like override or something was the actual term that they used.
Yeah, so you can kind of like brain sex them, with your little thingy.
So you could do that Avatar thing where you put your hair in their tail and...
Yeah, not quite like Avatar, where when you come to learn that when the blue people fuck each other, they use their tails, and they use that same tail to talk to the animals, clearly fucking the animals. James Cameron, can we address that number 2? Or either double down on it or explain it, please.
Double down on it. So, it showed like... them riding those velociraptors, and you're like, I've got to be careful of both the humans and the machines. So obviously you had to deal with that in the first one as well. there were human players that were combatants, but it's nice to see that
but
they're
they're
still
never
there.
on each other.
They weren't riding the friggin' Thunder Jaws, for example.
Yeah. There is certainly a lot of potential. Like it's a given. We know the excitement for this game is real. The potential is mad. What I'm really curious about is, pardon me, they're showing this on PS5,
DualSense features,
which makes sense,
yeah.
right? Because they want to showcase PS5. But knowing this is coming to both platforms, 4 and 5,
it's because when they tried to record it on PlayStation 4, it blew up.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Like, how are they pulling this back for the 4? Like, is this a circumstance like Resi where they made it for the 5 and then scaled it? Then they're gonna have to now scale it back for the 4 because they know that not everyone will have 5s by then, whenever the fucker drops out, which is, I presume, later this year.
Yeah, most likely.
But we'll keep that PlayStation. We'll say, let us know what you thought of the Horizon Forbidden West gameplay, state of play footage. I'm certainly impressed, but like I was going to be impressed anyway. I'll admit this one I was probably a little. It was an easy sell for me. It was an easy sell. This week they also announced the next upcoming PS Plus games. They include Star Wars Squadrons, which is dope. Virtua Fighter 5 Ultimate Showdown and Operation Tango. 2 out of 3 are shit. So Squadrons is the only winner on that. It's not a very good month.
Yeah. So earlier this week, Sony held an investors relations day. So this is showing off how the company's been doing, what's upcoming for its future. So one thing that came out of this was it seems that Sony are preparing to release Uncharted 4 on PC, Ryan.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Bold strategy to release the 4th title of a game.
Look, I really would have expected them to release the Uncharted collection first, just like in order to get them a taste, and because like that game has been free as is Thieves End like multiple times now. Like you can easily just go. Like I think they gave it away as PS Plus, and then I think also as the Play at Home for last year.
Yeah.
So they literally know they're going to make nothing out of it. Why not put it on PC?
Yeah. So it was listed as a new growth vector for PlayStation Studios alongside mobile and games as a service. Also in the same Relations Day presentation, we see a new logo for God of War Ragnarok. Turns out the logo was fan-made, but was used in their official investor presentation. Yeah. It's got to be a little bit awkward there. Earlier this year, we saw that Sony were hiring for a new role focusing on PC, mobile, and live service games. Jim Ryan has given a little bit more information on that decision. Quote, we've been thinking about how players enjoy our content and have had some early success with experimenting with mobile games and apps to provide more choice to gamers. Mobile is just one of the areas we are exploring to reach millions of gamers beyond our platforms. PlayStation has a huge catalogue of diverse first-party IP that can transition to smartphone gaming and complement our AAA games or live service games. We are exploring the mobile market with some wonderful PlayStation franchises. Please stay tuned.
See, the mobile market, I can't give any fucks about. Like, you're selling to the wrong crowd there. That is lowest. Like, I understand their idea is to try and entice people to come across, and I don't see that sort of being happening with a mobile space, because anytime they've tried to, or anyone has tried to make any sort of premium mobile game, it's either not purchased because it's like hey, it's $14. Everyone's like, ugh, I'm not paying $14 for a fucking mobile game. So like it's a no-win scenario in mobile, because unless you are either literally for the microtransactions or you are free to play, which then still for ads or microtransactions, it's not going to go well. You know what I'm saying?
No. Yeah.
But PC, I'm a big advocate for putting it on PC, because as I said, you know, Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection, they've given it away free. There is no more money that can be made. They must be selling tens of copies of that a week, if not a month, right? Put it on PC, because it's done its time on the console. There is nothing wrong with putting it on PC right now, because if that means someone else can play it and go, oh shit, yeah, then they go and buy a console, which I presume what they're trying to do. Sick. Why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's even, you know, I mean, I don't know about putting it on an Xbox, so that seems like a bit far. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, fucking cares. But, yeah, so moving to PC, super down, mobile, unsure. Unsure on that one. But, Max, speaking of Uncharted.
So Sony, as we know, Sony is hitting the big screen. So let's talk about that new still shot from the upcoming Uncharted movie. So the still is showing Tom Holland as Nathan Drake holding a flashlight in what appears to be like an old museum room, perhaps. And standing right behind him is Sully, Mark Wahlberg. But Ryan, the internet's not very happy with this still shot.
Yeah.
It doesn't have Nathan Drake's iconic clothing.
Yep.
We've got Tom Holland in like a denim jacket and some jeans.
And this is once again contrary to the promo shot that we saw of him in the attire.
Yep. And the big one, Sully is missing his upper lip holstery. That T strain is missing.
You proud of that one?
The cookie catcher, it's gone. Like,
how long did you sit there and work on upper lip holstery?
Not very long.
Yeah, so I went to bed about 2:30. Look, the problem that we have is looking at that still. It could be any movie.
Yeah.
Like, there is nothing iconically or even identifiably Uncharted about that promo shot. Right? If you were to look at that, if you were to pull up that photo, if someone you go, which one of these guys is Nathan Drake?
Yeah.
There's no clearly identified. If you were to read the description of a young brown-haired adventurer, you go, Marky Mark? Is it Mark? No, he's supposed to be the grizzled old guy. Really? Look, it doesn't fill me with any excitement or anticipation for the film. I'm still gonna see it 'cause I'm a fucking idiot, but like, nothing about it makes me go, oh yeah, no, I can't wait to go see that. I look and I go, oh, I should be a little concerned, I think.
Yeah. In other Sony on the big screen news, or on the little screen in this case, now forgive me because I'm probably going to butcher this pronunciation. Is it Marlee Dandridge?
Yeah.
The person who played Firefly's leader Marleen in Last of Us will be reprising her role in the HBO series.
That's dope. That's so dope.
So she'll be joining Pedro Pascal and
Angry Chick from Game of Thrones.
And the angry chick from Game of Thrones, who I can't think of her name.
Yeah, she's going to be dope. I'm very excited. I love this as an idea because one of the biggest things, like, well, why don't you just get the voice actors? Because normally they don't look like the person that they're playing. Like, I'm sorry, like, Troy Baker doesn't look like, Joel. Sorry, my kind of drawled my own mouth there. He doesn't look like Joel.
He might look like Joe. How do you know?
Yeah, he could look like Joe. I don't know, but he doesn't look like Joel. So cool. But these they look similar. Like, fucking do it, and it's good to see. It's good to see.
Yeah.
Speaking of people, voice actors looking like their characters. We're gonna go the other way now because Far Cry 6. So this morning, at time of recording, at 2:30 a.m. Australian time on Saturday the 29th, they dropped the first gameplay for Far Cry 6. It was exciting. So we get to see a little bit more of the island of Yara. It's makeshift weapons, how you can play and heal yourself, and how you can cauterize your own wounds with a fucking cigar. So we got to see a little bit more around Giancarlo Esposito's character, which is sort of the big dictatory thing for Yara. And they also tease more information will be coming soon, so we can assume it will get another showcase at Ubisoft Forward in next month. They had mentioned that 3 DLCs were coming alongside, as well as a free upgrade from PS4 to PS5 if you grab it on PS4. And they also announced that a release date of the 7th of October of this year. So, unlike myself, Max is 8 for 8 on games that are releasing this year on his video games draft. There is literally no way that I can win. I couldn't have won if he only had 5 games. But it's looking bad for me.
So this is the first...
Go ahead.
Sorry, go.
I fucking loved the 2 trailers that we saw. Number of reasons. A, it looks mint. I love Giancarlo Esposito. Do I have my little figure down here? I do. Hang on. Especially in Breaking Bad, he was my man. So I've got him as a little pop vinyl, got him as an action figure. I fucking love Giancarlo. I think he was brilliant. He's great in Better Call Saul. He's been great in everything he's popped up in. He's an absolutely tremendous actor, and I think we will see that here, which I'm very excited about.
One of the things
sorry, you go first. Why put these?
No, you go. Okay, I was just going to say, one of the things that I'm excited about is this is the first time, from memory, that they've made a completely fictitious area for you to play in. Because they're normally set in real-world locations, correct, for Far Cry?
Yeah, so like Montana,
to a degree.
Nepal, like the sort of islands.
The last one, like
Africa.
Far Cry 5, was like
Montana.
southern USA.
Yes, Montana,
yeah. Like, this is Yara doesn't exist. This is a self-contained,
I think you're right,
designed thing.
Yeah.
Because obviously, most of the time, there's a very political, what's the word? Not stance, but like subtext behind these games. And obviously, when they're in real world locations, that can kind of be a little bit messy sometimes.
True. An example is with Far Cry 5, the amount of people that commented on like fucking Trump and shit with these sort of characters, like you're doing it wrong, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So I think them stepping away from real world locations and designing their own world is a good thing. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see how they do that, because they have to create the world, how that world is governed, how it's run. Obviously, we know that there is a dictatorship to a degree, but it seems like this. Watching the gameplay footage, they're like these mismatched, especially with like the weapons. These whatever you can kind of grab and get your hands on, you kind of mashing them all together. There was a gun that was shooting CDs whilst playing the Macarena.
That was so good. I guess that's a great expansion on like the the big fucking blade launcher that was in 5. Like I do quite like that. And we get to see the bow back, because the bow was a great thing in 5.
They were talking about like the minigun has a motorbike motor attached to it to make it spin fast enough to shoot. Yeah. Like this is it's gonna be awesome.
I am very, very excited for Far Cry. I quite love Far Cry. Now, don't get me wrong. In the past I've been addressed as Ryan Ubisoft Betson, and like the part, because I do tend to love Ubisoft games. Ubisoft as a company still very questionable. When we sit here and praise Far Cry 6, that does not dismiss the shit that they have done. All right, we know that's still happening. We know that's still a problem, and all those things are not resolved. However, Far Cry 6 was cool.
Yeah, and they showed off these Supremo backpacks.
Yeah, that's the thing that you pointed out was most exciting.
Yeah, so there's like one with like 15 rocket launchers strapped to the back of you're like a mortar. There was a jetpack one. There was a flamethrower, and they seem to be like essentially like superpowers to a degree. Like you can wear these different backpacks, and each one will give you a different advantage over whatever it is that you're trying to do at the time.
And additionally, one thing they have done is they've brought back what I believe the last time would have been 3. Is we have you're playing not just generic person.
Yeah.
So you're actually playing a defined character. You know her look. You know how she speaks. You know her involvement. Because if you from memory from 5, you are just fucking person. I don't think you ever spoke. You were a silent protagonist. So what that tells me, and also, hey man, sorry, just chat saying hey. What this tells me is this is an incredibly story-driven Far Cry. Now, don't get me wrong, Far Cry 5, Far Cry New Dawn, I've never played 4, sadly. I probably should get that sorted. That game's pretty cheap, I think. So I should get that sorted. I should go play 4. I played every other one. The story is always a big focus for it. However, this feels like heavier because your Elise character will be involved in some way and add that kind of extra oomph to it. So even though the character that you played in 3 was just a bro, there was still character. There was very clearly defined character around this person. So like you understand like their motivations and whatever. When it's generic person, the idea is the player will just insert themselves in. Like it doesn't really work that way. Like maybe back in the day it does, but I think people have a lot more of the self-awareness that comes around not having that like sense of they are willing to drop that sense of disbelief. You know what I'm saying? But either way, game looks mad. Let us know what you think for Far Cry 6. I am very hot for it. I think it should be sweet. However, a game that I know you, Max, are incredibly turgid for is the previously indefinitely delayed Dying Light 2.
Yeah, so you know how E3 is coming up in a couple of weeks and everyone's going to showcase all their stuff. Yeah, it turns out everyone's just jumping the gun. So
they did this in 2019 as well.
So after its many delays and reports of workplace issues over the last few years, Techland announced yesterday at time of recording that Dying Light 2 Stay Human is coming this year on the 7th of December to PlayStation 4 and 5. Coming along with this announcement was a bunch of gameplay footage. So this is different from the previous gameplay footage that they showed. So they talk about how the world is in now a modern dark age. So you're kind of similar to the first game. You're kind of getting whatever you can to throw together to use as weapons and resources. They talk about the 3 factions that are in the world, the survivors who are, they're off doing their own thing. They're growing their crops. They're just surviving. We've got the peacekeepers there,
farming.
Your ex-military, your lawmakers, and they're basically trying to bring back the law. And then you've got the renegades, who are your convicts, your criminals, your gang leaders, and they're trying to oppress everyone and take everything back. And it shows some gameplay footage of like you using doing missions for each of the 3 factions and how doing stuff for one will affect the other, and everything you do in the world changes both the story and the world itself. It shows an area that's like completely flooded, and then you go and do something for one of the people, and it completely drains the area and completely opens up a new area of the map. They've been saying that the map is 4 times larger than that of the original Dying Light. Mm-hmm. It's still very much the same first-person, free-running parkour zombie game that it was. It looks to be running a hell of a lot smoother. So in addition to the grappling hook that you got in the first game, you now have a paraglider, so you can kind of jump off roofs and sail across the skies. It looks much like the first one. It did have a day and night cycle. This looks much more brutal at night time than what it was in the original game. And then they go on to say, we wanted the combat to feel hefty, to feel minty. If you're swinging this massive hammer, we want you to be able to feel that, you got to slow down to hit them. And they're like, they mentioned that if that's not your forte, if you want to just do the free running stuff, you can stat yourself out so you get all your abilities are like dexterity based. So you can do, they show a shot of you grabbing a zombie and jumping off the roof and landing on it to avoid falling damage, but you crush the zombie underneath you. Oh, the game looks so good. I totally re-downloaded the first one last night to do another sneaky playthrough for about the 10th time before the game comes out.
Because that is a game that you and I have played a couple of times together. Because the idea was like, I'll run you through it, and then the world got in the way, as it does, because we have different. You and I play on different times. But yeah, I love the excitement in your voice for this.
This has now become my most anticipated game of 2021. Now that it's coming out, I can't wait for Christmas.
It's right on the back end, and it's just like Dying Light 1. It's come out at a really, really good time.
Yeah,
like it's there's nothing else is going to drop around it, and it's going to do really well because of it.
Yeah.
I think the first one dropped in January, I think, from memory.
Yeah,
so because back in those days, nothing came out in January, so it's like, oh, shit, yeah, all right, cool. I do hope it has that multiplayer perspective to it again. That'd be nice, so you can sort of team up. They haven't, from memory, I don't think they've said whether that is or isn't happening.
It would seem an odd choice to take it out of the game.
Very true. But we'll have to wait and see on that one. Speaking of games that have multiplayer parts just completely removed, Cyberpunk. It has been over 5 months since the release of Cyberpunk 2077, and haven't you already forgotten about it? And the game is still missing from the PlayStation Store. It was removed just 10 days after launch back in December of 2020. Based on recent comments from CEO Adam Krasinski, the situation still hasn't been resolved, although talks between CDPR and Sony are apparently ongoing. Quote, "We are still in discussions, and with every patch the game gets better and there's visible progress. But, as we said, the decision is an exclusive decision of Sony. So we are waiting for the information about the fact that they took the decision to bring back this game," end quote. Krasinski stated during a company's latest shareholder meeting. So, loosely translated from Swedish, it's not our fault, it's them. Is what he's essentially saying. He's like, if it was up to us, we'd have the game on there. But Sony are the ones playing hard. You're the ones that were going to release a broken game, so fuck you.
Yeah, so earlier this week, they also got a new games director.
Yeah.
For what's left of that game to be directed.
Yep.
I guess.
And apparently there's a big exodus of staff as well, which should be a point of concern. You know what I mean? It's not looking good. And like I said, I really dislike the passing of the buck here. Like in this statement, there is no acknowledgement of mistake.
Yeah, they're basically like, it would be on the store, but
like,
it's up to them.
It's not up to us. We'd have it on the store right now if it was our way. Like what they're essentially saying here is Sony are in the wrong for making the decision to pull it, and they are in the wrong for supporting that decision of the game not meeting the certification standards now. Like, that is not the right attitude to have. Because once again, we know that they've made all the money that they're going to make on that game. Like, they sold how many, like, millions of copies on the first day, even when it was fucked? Yeah. They don't care. And to me, this demonstrates that as a company, they still don't care. Because the answer should be, we are working exceptionally hard to get it ready so that when Sony is comfortable, when we are comfortable, we will upload it back on. We will request for it to appear back on the store.
Yeah,
that is how you take it. Like, because once again, you know, CD Projekt Red had that previous stance of, we're the fucking good guys, we're the ones that are doing cool shit. We're for the gamers. Yet we saw very, very quickly they have never been that. And it was a complete fucking lie.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I called it beforehand. In that scenario, Ryan was right.
As I'm sitting on my Cyberpunk chair.
Yeah, you should be embarrassed.
The chair's so comfortable, though.
Yeah.
Last week, Ryan, I talked about a rumoured second Final Fantasy game coming to PlayStation. We now have further claims now that Imran Khan of Fanbyte has shared further details of that rumoured title. The spin-off title is said to be called Final Fantasy Origins and is being developed in collaboration with Team Ninja, the studio behind Neo. The article also corroborates rumours that the game will play like Dark Souls and is set somewhere in the same world as the very first Final Fantasy title on the NES. With an announcement currently scheduled for E3 2021. Khan then goes on to state that Square Enix plans to release an alpha demo this summer, so our winter, I guess, which means in the next couple of months. Mm-hmm. Quote, to solicit feedback from the audience while the game is still in a fairly early state. End quote. It will operate a lot like the pre-release tests for both Neo titles got prior to their launch, with Final Fantasy Origins currently named Stranger in Paradise. The leak is at least partly sourced from assets and information that has been shared with gaming media ahead of the publisher's currently unannounced June showcase. Quote, expect the title to play similar to that of Neo or other games in its genre, but to be more accessible for a wider audience, the article explains. On the Square Enix side of things, development is being led by those who made the fighting game Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. Oh, what a dream combination for me.
What a
Final Fantasy Souls.
That is the grossest combination of games ever for me. Someone's like Final Fantasy, I'm like, Dark Souls, What if he'd make him kiss?
Oh, they can smooch up a storm. Bring it on.
Gross.
Now this is great. This has just made me like I was already looking forward to E3. Square Enix, one of my favorite developers. I love all the stuff that they do. To hear a rumor that there's going to be 2 Final Fantasy games being shown off,
this is rubbing in shitty games that I'm having.
Cannot wait.
It's gross. It's absolutely gross. Do you have any more to add on this one?
No, I think because it's all rumor and speculation for now. Obviously, my stance is super keen. Bring it on. If this comes to fruition, wonderful. My fingers are crossed. My legs are crossed. Anything that can be crossed is crossed. Hopefully, we'll find out more at whatever E3 is set to be in a couple of weeks' time.
So for me, like looking at this from a objective perspective, like it sounds really cool. I don't know whether the crossover of those two fan bases are pretty high, except for you. With that, so if they go down that Dark Souls or Soulsborne-esque approach, I do hope they go in the lines of like Jedi Fallen Order, with the scalable difficulties and whatnot, because that was a great sort of way to sort of sell the game.
Well, if that quote is to be like is true and that it is accessible for a wider audience, that might be the case.
Yeah. Because if it's anything like fucking Returnal or Demon Souls or Dark Souls, game can get fucked, all right? Because as the chat has reminded me, my previous quote, Final Fantasy can suck a dick. I think I said last night to a friend of mine, Final Fantasy can eat my asshole. So, like, I'm not the most amount of love for that franchise. But you got to experience some more love for Final Fantasy VII Remake this week. So what I'll do, I'll just give it the pre-roll and then we'll cut it in, and then Max can chat a little bit more about it afterwards. So this week, once again, Player 2's very own Paul James was very kind enough to join us to chat about a game. This time it was Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Max, being the Final Fantasy dork that he is, was very keen to sit and chat with him. It is available there is a written piece on player2.net.au as well. However, here is the video of Max having that conversation. Apologies in advance for the audio. Paul was doing it in his newly built studio shed, and it was pissing down a storm. Max fucking so excited, he blew out his microphone, so it sounded like a shitty broken radio. Enjoy it the best you can. Here it is.
We are joined today by Paul James of Player 2 he had the opportunity to spend some time behind closed doors with some upcoming Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. What a mouthful. So, Paul, how did this come about?
Naming convention, right?
Oh, I know, right? So how did this come about? What did you get to have a look at?
So
how did they present it? How did they present it to you in this, social distancing world?
Yeah, COVID world means that we basically just got sent videos. So for anyone who's got that big kind of question mark around this whole thing, here's the disclaimer: it's video that I've watched. I haven't gone hands on. So just grain of salt. Anything that I guess comes from this point. But yeah, Square Enix / Bandai Namco locally have given us a whole bunch of video to look at. Answers a whole bunch of questions about Intergrade, Yuffie, and the various gameplay aspects that I guess go with that, and it's pretty sweet, to be honest.
Well, let's kick things off with the big one. Obviously, the biggest selling point of Intergrade is the extra chapter that does introduce Yuffie. So, does the footage explain at all what she's doing in Midgar? Since in the original title, you generally don't meet Yuffie until after you've left Midgar.
Yeah, it's a weird one. Like the very beginning of the footage that we got to see, you kind of see Yuffie rolling into Midgar for the first time. I'm guessing there might have been like an opening cutscene of something before that, because she's just kind of arrived. Chapter 1 kind of text splashed across the screen, and she just kind of gets to it. But she's talking about how she's obviously from Wutai, for anyone who's not necessarily hugely familiar with Final Fantasy VII, and they've kind of been at war with Shinra for forever, really. Yeah. And so she's kind of broken in, or snuck into Shinra, and she plans on breaking into their headquarters to steal some ultimate materia that they've got. And along the way, she's hoping to come across the crew from Avalanche and kind of get their help to make it all happen. So that's, in terms of narrative context, that's about all we actually got through that entire thing. And I don't blame them for wanting to keep it low key. Obviously, how much we want to delve into Final Fantasy VII Remake spoilers is probably up to you. It's your show. I'll let you kind of just decide that. But it's an interesting one because if you played the original Final Fantasy VII, you know that Yuffie doesn't feature this early in the game.
Of course.
This is obviously some parallel sort of thing that they're telling us. It doesn't necessarily it's not necessarily reflective of all the big controversial stuff from the ending of Final Fantasy VII. Like, this could be just a simple chapter from the original that was just never really explored. So it's interesting in that respect, and how it will ultimately connect to all the stuff that's going on in Remake. Again, I'll try and dodge that unless you say otherwise. I'm keen to see where it plays out, but they haven't given us a hell of a lot to work with yet.
Yeah, so is it mainly just roaming overworld footage and a few combat sequences? If there's a lack of that story content or story beats that they're showing,
yeah, I guess by overworld, if you kind of mean just kind of navigating, the city, like Midgar in the same way that you did in kind of the core Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then that's exactly what we see there. Whole bunch of really interesting different kind of combat sequences with Yuffie taking on some kind of smaller little goons and some larger opponents as well. I don't recall there being anything that they showed in terms of actual opponents that was in the original version of Remake. I feel like everything we saw was different. There might be one exception that I'm forgetting or something like that, but the overwhelming majority completely new. There was like a gigantipede boss that they showed at the end of the footage. I mean, you can kind of maybe get a sense for what this thing looks like, with the name, but like a giant centipede. And it certainly gave off a lot of, in terms of the way it was kind of fighting, it gave off a lot of Guard Scorpion sort of tones and vibes. So Guard Scorpion being the original boss from the first boss, from the original game as well as Remake. It certainly feels a little bit like that in terms of there's the stages to the boss and the variety of kind of techniques from range to up close and personal, and then of course it's hulking size like that. All those sort of little facets came together and made it feel a little bit familiar in that sense, but it totally won't be, which is kind of cool and exciting.
Oh, that's good. So what different, like going back to the combat that we get to see as with Yuffie, how does she differentiate from the rest of the playable characters from 7 Remake?
So what I've found, and again, this is the big disclaimer from before that I wasn't actually going hands on with it. It was all video stuff, but just kind of watching the way Yuffie moves, whether it's navigating the environment or specifically in combat, she feels like she's not as agile as Tifa, which I guess is interesting because I'd probably argue just kind of my history with the original game. I'd say they're kind of on a fairly similar level, from different backgrounds, but she doesn't feel or appear to be quite as agile as Tifa, but she's also not as heavy as Cloud, or certainly not as heavy as Barrett. So there seems to be like a middle ground in terms of just my first thought from a moment there, and I upon reflection, I was completely wrong. She felt a bit clunky.
Okay,
but that's definitely not the case. It's just she's not as swift on her feet as I perhaps expected her to be at first. So
is she a ranged character or a melee character?
Ranged by default, so there's still the what do you call those? The shuriken is kind of the go-to there. You can certainly get up close and personal and kind of use it as a melee weapon as well. There's a cool like throw feature, almost God of War style. Like you throw it out there and you actually have to press a button again for it to come back. Which was kind of cool. That was the triangle prompt, that one. That was like your heavy, if you think to the original kind of 7 Remake mechanics, it was basically square or triangle. That's your triangle attack versus the stock standard kind of melee attack being mapped to square. So that's kind of interesting in terms of maybe what strategic options there are. I'm not going to say it's suddenly the Leviathan axe or anything like that, but it could be kind of interesting how you might choose to throw it, leave it there, whether it's, wedged in an enemy or wedged in the environment or whatever the case happens to be, and then recall it, or whether there's even a few seconds that elapse, and if you haven't recalled it, then it just comes back to you. Not too sure.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that she can be used both ranged and up close, because obviously in Final Fantasy VII Remake, you have the... for instance, when you're playing as Cloud, you have to, if you don't want to waste your mana using magic to hit a long-ranged enemy, you have to do that character switch and swap to the ranged characters to shoot someone that's out of your range. It's nice to know that she can adapt to any circumstance, I guess. Yeah,
it certainly seems like, even just based on that, no, this is certainly me extrapolating. There was nothing in the video here that necessarily suggested this one way or the other. There is one other kind of player, or at least character that's there alongside you in combat. It could be a Red 13 sort of role where it's kind of non-playable, but Sonon, who's not a name that I remember at all from the original.
Not a name I recall either.
Yeah, and maybe that's exclusive to this kind of Yuffie prequel sort of thing. Like he features in some of the combat, which I don't know. It could be that Red 13 sort of role where he's not actually playable. So if you're playing exclusively as Yuffie, then you need to be able to not only reach the flying enemies, but also deal with the up close and personal sort of stuff. So they're kind of pulling in what you'd get from Barrett and what you'd get from Cloud, and making it available through one character, which is kind of cool and interesting, and certainly really interesting when she inevitably rocks up in part 2 or whatever, when she does eventually meet up with the crew, and all of a sudden you've got one character that's more or less exclusively ranged. You've got one character that's, or multiple characters, sorry, I should say, that are exclusively melee, and then you've got one that's kind of both. So it'd be kind of cool to see how all that pairing comes together, but I don't expect that to happen in this remake for obvious reasons if you've played the original game.
Yeah. Do we get to see any... did you see any materia melding in the footage? Obviously, materia being a core mechanic in Final Fantasy VII Remake, allowing you to use certain abilities, magic, summons, those kinds of things. Do you get to see any new materia-based coming out of this that wasn't in the base game? Or
look, I probably didn't study that part of it closely enough, but you certainly see a fair bit of materia in use. You do get to see the summon in the form of Ramu, or how do we pronounce that one? I've heard it pronounced differently in different...
Ramu. From memory, that's the lightning...
Yeah, big electrical lightning guy. And you do get to see like him in full force, so using Judgment Bolt, which looks fantastic. I mean, that's always one of the best looking summon like attacks regards to the Final Fantasy game that you play. So that was really cool to see that in action. Like I said, you do see some materia stuff in use. It wasn't necessarily the massive focus. Like in the footage, they weren't slowing it down and saying, here's this and here's that. Like it was just kind of stringing it together in the throes of combat. But what I did like, and this wasn't so much a materia thing, but it was kind of a crossover. So again, I mentioned that character of Sonon before, who seems to fight independently, but there does seem to... Have you played Chrono Trigger from the Super Nintendo?
Yes.
So like those cross attacks where you can kind of pair up with one or even two teammates to kind of go with, dual or triple attacks?
Also similar to like Final Fantasy IX, where you can imbue your sword with magic using VV and... I can't think of the knight's name. Steiner.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't default to Final Fantasy IX, given it's my favourite game, but Chrono Trigger, I guess, is kind of where some of that sort of stuff began. But there's certainly like it is exactly though what you described with Vivi and Steiner there, where Yuffie's kind of imbuing some sort of elemental magic upon Sonon's abilities, and you can actually kind of combine the two in that kind of magic sword sort of idea from Final Fantasy IX, and unleash some sort of cool attack like that. So again, maybe furthering the point that this Sonon guy isn't playable, the way that you can kind of take advantage of his skill set is to imbue him with whatever element based on whatever Yuffie does, and then he launches an attack. And that still fits in line with all the staggering and all those sorts of things from before, the pressure gauge and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What they refer to this thing with Sonon as is the two characters being synergized. There's kind of a little prompt that appears on the screen that says they're synergized, at which point I think that's when you can... The way I interpret it is that's when you can use those maneuvers. So look out for that while you're playing it in like a month from now. Holy shit, we're playing this thing in a month from now, mate.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So in the earlier parts of Final Fantasy VII Remake, for example, we get to spend some time with the townsfolk doing side missions, playing mini games. With Yuffie being a stranger to Midgar, do you get to see any of her interactions with the locals? Is there anything?
A little bit, like kind of tongue-in-cheek sort of stuff. There's even one or two that seem to identify her as being from Wutai, which is interesting because there is such a clear conflict and all this propaganda coming from Shinra about anyone from outside, basically. So it's kind of I guess they must be sympathizers or even maybe other people who've infiltrated over the journey. But there's some cool little side activities as well. There's one that they kind of lean into a little for maybe a bit longer than they needed to in the footage anyway, where you're collecting flyers for it was like the Happy Turtle shop or something like that. You go there's like 6 or 7 different flyers that you can go and collect. Sure, and it involves cats because, of course, it involves cats as well. You know, Final Fantasy VII and some of the people's concerns with cats in that game, that they're making sure to force that down your throat even further. And the one that I took a real liking to, and I'm looking forward to kind of exploring a little bit when the final game comes out, they've added like a mini game called Fort Condor, which obviously, I mean, we know all about Condor in the core Final Fantasy VII game, and it's kind of like a very miniature tower defense sort of thing. You've got a whole you've got two opposing teams. You're trying to take out the opposition's kind of. There's kind of three basically like forts you got to take out there, 3 stations, and you're kind of placing like it's all big grid based system. You're placing your troops or whatever. It seems like they're all Shinra troops of various different sorts on both sides. They're not trying to lean further into the Wutai versus Shinra thing. It's just you got a Shinra deck and you've got a Shinra deck, and now we're going to play against each other and whatever. But you're placing these units, and they will automatically just default to kind of charging forward. But you want to involve strategy into that by this thing here that they've placed is going to be weak to this sort of ability, so I'll place this unit here. There's layers to that strategy there, and you're hoping that you kind of overwhelm them. I guess this is a really weird one for me to go with, but I think of a game that I spent a lot of time playing, like Gears Pop or Plants vs Zombies, and those in that sort of idea where there is that kind of charge forward, like you're moving forward up the thing, or you've got an opponent that's kind of charging towards you, and you're dropping your units there to try and defend or advance.
It sounds similar to that of the Fort Condor minigame in the original Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation 1, but just different enough to make it like a
slightly more in depth.
By the way you explained it, it sounds like it's almost like you have an opponent playing opposing units, as opposed to in the original game you were essentially just funding the defense of the fort.
You pretty much hit the nail on the head there, and it looks pretty cool. Okay. I'm pretty keen to explore a little bit more of it. So, it could be a nice little Gwent style distraction. And I mean, Gwent's amazing. Obviously, very very different. But I'm looking for my next Gwent, and I feel like Fort Condor could maybe be that.
I know it might be hard to tell or to differentiate in video, but obviously it's going. This is the PS5 release of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah.
Can you see a big jump in graphical fidelity from Final Fantasy VII Remake? Because obviously that game looked great when it came out, but there was, I personally had a little bit of texture popping issues in some of the more heavily populated areas of Midgar. I know, obviously, you saw by the sound of it a set piece of footage that may have been curated.
Several little vertical slices, and 100% curated. So I definitely didn't see any of that, but I am interested to see if we have any doors with horrible rendering and all those sorts of things like what we saw in Remake. Hell, let's hope that in the remastered version for the PS5 that we actually see that door fixed in the core main game. Like, that'd be a nice little perk. They should actually put that as a dot point. There was so much talk about that. They should put that as a dot point as a part of their marketing, if they've fixed it, of course. But no, it was a little bit hard to tell. It was certainly very strategically pulled vertical slices, and again, so that makes the whole thing another disclaimer. They are clearly trying to highlight the game at its best, which is which is what any of these sort of events are, and you just hope that the person watching it has a discerning enough eye that can kind of pick through it and focus on the content rather than the way it's presented. But
yeah, of course.
It's certainly really interesting and certainly really promising, though. I like what I'm seeing from it. With all that said,
now this will be my last question, and I wouldn't be able to forgive myself if I didn't ask it. Was there a coming soon Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 at the end of the footage?
No.
Nothing? No.
There was what was interesting though, and I guess just slightly connecting the threads to the core remake title and potentially the sequel, there was for like a second, probably no more than a second, there was one guy kind of like just a Genova follower, like his hood right up, and he's just kind of that slow Genova chant that they have going. They didn't focus on it all outside of, they clearly a very strategic thing. We'll make Yuffie walk past this person, you hear the voice, and then boom, we cut to something else. Like, they're trying to tease a little bit of that stuff. How deep it goes, I don't know. We're going to get the spirits and all those sorts of things as well. Because, in terms of a timeline, this is clearly going, I'd imagine it's clearly set at the same time that everything is going on from the core game. But it could also just be just as interesting for her to be arriving at Midgar just after everything that's gone on.
So she doesn't run into the main cast at all during this footage?
No.
Okay.
She outlines that she's looking for them. Or not even necessarily looking for them, but she hopes to get the support of Avalanche. So, whether that's just, hey guys, any chance you can help, or actually, trying to track them down remains to be seen.
The whole enemy of my enemy is my friend situation.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they're really trying to hide the story stuff. Like, the extent of it is, I'm Yuffie, I'm from Wutai, and here I am in Midgar. I want to steal this materia.
I guess that makes sense.
It. Yeah. And keep it close to the chest. Why not?
Yeah.
They've already won people over with the remake.
It's coming out in, a couple of weeks at this point?
Yeah, exactly. Holy shit.
Yeah. Just to add to the list of everything else that's coming out. Well, thank you again so much for coming and speaking and, giving this massive fan a little bit of a sneak peek of information.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was valuable.
Yeah, well, it's definitely got me a lot more interested in... Well, I mean, I was already interested in this game, but it's definitely given me I'm just covered in Final Fantasy tattoos. Got my Final Fantasy books up in front of me. I'm super keen and ready for this game.
It's gonna be pretty sweet, I think.
Yeah. Well, thank you again.
All good, mate.
And good luck with the rest of the show.
Yeah, that's right. I'm still on it. You're not there.
I'm going to handball it to you now, and you can carry on. Fun fact: depending on how you cut this, I've thrown it to Padge to continue because he was supposed to be in on me.
Yeah. So Paul was supposed to join us this week.
Hindsight 2020. Am I right?
But yeah, like it was just rain noise for Paul, so that was a minor inconvenience. But if we removed it, it made him super echoey. You were just clipping up a storm, like you.
Yeah.
I think your a boner for the game bumped the mixing board and just messed with it. But Max, because you were talking to Padge before the footage was out. So now that the footage is out and you've seen it, and so all the questions that you asked now have answers from Padge and from what you've seen firsthand. How do you feel heading into Intergrade?
Look, seeing the footage now that it's out, it's they skirt the story so hard. There's no story giveaways at all, which makes sense.
Because you were asking all those story-based questions.
Yeah, because obviously, like you would have just heard, the biggest sell of this is that new episode featuring Yuffie. Mm-hmm. So you do get to see all that fun stuff. My big thing was how are they going to introduce it? How is it played? Because being the big Final Fantasy dork that I am, I just remember meeting her in the original game, and back when I was a dumb 7-year-old kid, she stole all my shit because I selected the wrong dialogue options. I lost all my shit, and I got really angry. So it'll be interesting to see what that story is that they're trying to tell. The game looks fantastic, but obviously, again, like we would have said, like you would have heard in the video, it is a curated chunk that they showed. Obviously, they're going to put their best foot forward. But, it's coming out on PlayStation 5. It comes out the day before Ratchet and Clank, so I don't know what I'm going to do. It's going to be a rough week that week, I guess.
You review Intergrade, I'll play Ratchet, problem solved.
Oh, I've never seen you do something. Hey, you're like, I don't have to do this one.
I'll happily take that bullet for you, Max.
Yeah, so obviously, super keen. Game comes out in a couple of weeks.
So look, because I was the one that obviously edited the video, I was privy to the footage as well. In order to cut the footage in over the interview, it looks amazing.
Yeah, it does.
They wasn't disclosed whether it was running on a PS4 or a PS5. I presume it was PS5 because I don't think it's available on PS4, is it?
I don't recall.
So in that case, it's very likely it's on a PS5 because it looks tremendous. It looks absolutely spectacular. Even though I didn't love the game as much as many others. Yeah. However, I cannot argue how beautiful the game is.
I must admit, like I said in the interview with Paul, I was really hoping to see that get ready to insert disc 2 on this date, but obviously...
Yeah.
They're
Yeah,
not ready
there was
to-
no mention of
they're not ready to talk
of
about
what
that.
episode 2 was going to be. I do like, from a combat perspective, I like what they've got with Yuffie. That, you know, the giant shuriken. She has a lot of up close attacks, also a lot of distance attacks as well. Well,
Those combination attacks that
Yeah.
she has with the ally looked awesome.
yeah, and like there's a big fucking centipede looking robo bastard at the end, which looked dope. I'll probably play it because I'm an idiot, but like, yeah, I'll have to finish the first game, won't I?
No, because it's the whole game. Like, just play it again from that new version.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I put like 15, 18 hours into the first. You want me to do that again?
That's like one chapter. What do you want about?
I play. Like, how many chapters are there? Like 9?
I don't know. 12,
Well,
13?
I think I played like 9 of the 13 or whatever. And is I'm sure the save's not transferable, which is worse.
Who knows?
But yeah, no, it looks fantastic. So big thank you once again to Paul for sharing that with us. We do really, really appreciate it. It's been cool. One thing we also did as well, Max, which you guys should go check out. It's on the channel now. We got to go out our own presentation. We didn't fucking need Paul this week. You and I watched a keynote presentation from Bandai Namco for the upcoming Dark Pictures Anthology called House of Ashes. If you want to go, we're not going to cut that in as well. This episode's going to be 11 years long, but go check it out. It is on the YouTube channel. It looks great. If you like Aliens, if you like Predator, if you like the Dark Pictures sort of, Until Dawn, what Supermassive are doing, it looks to be an improvement on that, which is awesome. Also, a nice, beautiful host there from the Bogan Boomer. Fantastic name, by the way. Yeah, so House of Ashes looks mint. Go check out that, because in that video as well, Max and I break them up, because we saw there was about 10 minutes of gameplay and 10 minutes from a keynote presentation from the game's director. So we sort of break down what he said as well as to break down the gameplay, and the gameplay is interlaced over that conversation. So go check that one out. Man, how good are these fucking little side things we've been doing? I've personally been really loving doing.
They've
them.
been awesome fun.
Something that I've always wanted to do, but we just never either A, had the access, or 2, the time to put together. Because when I was doing them with Josh's schedules was even tighter than yours. And now, in this beautiful digital age, because they're the fucking worldwide bastard, we have been given access to these things. We didn't have to fly interstate to go see these things. And even then, we were never invited anyway. But now, they're like, it's super easy to distribute. They're like, sure, you can come check this thing out. Yeah, you want to come check this thing out? And it's good times.
Yeah.
So let us know if you'll like them too, because we're going to keep doing them anyway. So if you don't like it, fuck it, we're doing them anyway.
Let's talk some quick bits to wrap things up. Chivalry 2 open beta is currently out now for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4.
Apparently that game is pretty dope, from what I heard.
Yeah, it is. The Scarlet Nexus demo is now live on PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4. That game is awesome from what I played in the demo.
Is this the same? It's the same demo that was on Xbox.
It's the same. It's the exact same demo that was on Xbox last week.
Yeah. So you still highly recommend it?
I still highly recommend it. It's well worth checking out the demo if you're into that kind of thing.
Not a betting game. Might be a you game.
Not a betting game. And Dreamsom is returning this year, July 27th.
Woohoo! For those that like Dreams.
Woohoo!
For like I guess there's at least enough people playing Dreams, I suppose. All right, here are the top 10 best-selling PS4 games in Australia for the week ending the 23rd of May 2021, and they are as follows. Number 10, Spyro Trilogy.
Yeah,
I forgot what it was called. I think it's on sale. Number 9 is Subnautica Below Zero. Number 8 is Minecraft. Number 7 is It Takes Two. Number 6, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Number 5, Resident Evil Village. Number 4, NBA 2K21. Number 3, GTA 5. Number 2, FIFA 21. And number 1 for the second week in a row is Mass Effect Legendary Edition, a game that I do need to go back to. I did buy it. I should probably play it.
Some upcoming titles for this week. We have Necromunda Hired Gun coming to PlayStation 4 and 5 on the 1st of June. We have Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection coming to PlayStation 4 on the 1st of June. We have Stonefly coming to both platforms, PS4 and PS5 on June 1st. Open Country coming to PlayStation 4 on June 3rd. Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2 coming to PlayStation 4 June 4th. And we have The Mighty Goose coming to PlayStation 4 and 5 on June 5th.
Sadly, not a sequel to Untitled Goose Game by House, which breaks my heart because that's what I'd like to see. So Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 coming to PS4 was supposed to come to PS5, but it has essentially been indefinitely delayed on the PS5 because they're essentially saying, in short, they can't get it running. Because I think there's a conversation around the Crytek engine.
Yeah.
Because if you look at other games that are using the Crytek engine that they're not coming across, like Robinson the Journey was one of them. And there's some other games that have had sort of... I think it's an older version of the Crytek engine that's causing the trouble. Because I know that Hunt Showdown uses it as well, but that seems to be not have any issues on PS5. So this is fascinating for those that are interested about Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts. So the PS5 native version, by the way, you should be able to play the PS4 version by the sounds of it. Through backwards compatibility. But that's the interesting part. But yeah, Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection. We talked about that. No, you and I talked about it off air, and about apparently that game is like super bonkers hard and just will kick your bum hole in. So for those that want that experience, because you didn't get enough of it with Returnal. But there you go. Big thank you to everyone for joining us this week for the recording of this show. Thank you, Max, for joining as always. I hope you all are enjoying your lockdown. We wish we could have been in studio once again, but Melbourne is a bumhole, Victoria is a bumhole, and we are stuck in our houses for at least the next 7 days. So hopefully next week, Max and I can be in the studio together once again to do the show. Well, next week should be the week before E3, man. Things are getting exciting. Things are getting real. Obviously, PlayStation aren't going to be there any major presence, but I think from now until E3, things are going to start leaking. We're going to have a lot of news between now and then, I feel.
Yeah.
It's very exciting times. Max, you know how to wrap it up.
This PlayStation conversation happens every Monday morning at 9 a.m.
Try again?
Honestly. Well, everybody, this PlayStation conversation happens every Monday morning at 8 a.m. on podcast services, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and 9 a.m. on those YouTubes. If you'd like to take part in future conversations with us, come and check out our socials. Facebook, Discord, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those links can be found in the description below.
If you also want to follow us on Twitter, our names are under our faces. We talk shit on Twitter. It's fun. Or I kind of, tweet out my drunken journeys on last night, mostly. So if you want to join the show, join the conversation as it happens, head over to twitch.tv/thepopculturist, where you can watch us record this show live, where you can jump in the chat and become part of the show, just like a bunch of wonderful individuals have. If you want to support the show, you can. Tell your friends, tell your family about this PlayStation pod. If you are on your podcast services, be sure to give it a 5-star rating and a written review. If you are on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment below. We endeavour to answer every single comment. If you want to support the show financially, you can. Patreon.com/thepopculturist, as well as our merchandise store, popculturist.com/shop, where you can buy shirts and other assorted shit with our logos on it. But until next week, I'm Ryan Betson.
I'm Max Cooper.
And that was For the Players.